Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Good evening. Your top stories from the GB newsroom. The Foreign Office confirmed the first British nationals have left Gaza via the Rafah border crossing from Gaza into Egypt. The Prime Minister has held talks with the Egyptian President this evening about the situation in Gaza and the wider Middle East. Buses carrying at least 320 foreign passport holders set off from Gaza earlier today, the first in an initial list of 500 people allowed to leave the enclave. It comes as more than 80 injured people were taken across the Rafah crossing in ambulances under a deal mediated by Qatar. Israel says it killed a second Hamas commander in the Jabalia refugee camp airstrike. Rescue efforts were underway this afternoon as paramedics dug through the rubble in a desperate search for survivors. The Israeli military says 15 of its soldiers were killed during heavy fighting in its ground offensive into Gaza. In other news, police have arrested a 32-year-old man in connection with several incidents in which mice were thrown into McDonald's restaurants in the West Midlands this week. They're now searching for 30-year-old Bilal Hussein as part of their public appeal. Footage shared on social media showed dozens of mice unleashed in another McDonald's after 2 incidents earlier this week. Pro-Palestinian activists have reportedly called for protests against McDonald's after a restaurant in Israel donated meals to Israeli soldiers and security workers. The US Vice President was at Downing Street earlier this evening as several high-profile guests attend the world's first summit on AI safety at Bletchley Park. She was greeted by the Prime Minister, who hopes to put the UK at the centre of global efforts to monitor the technology. Earlier, Kamala Harris announced the creation of the US AI Safety Institute, which will work alongside its UK counterpart. She said the threats posed by new technologies are profound. A former top civil servant says the former Health Secretary Matt Hancock displayed nuclear levels of overconfidence in the early stages of the pandemic. Helen McNamara was Deputy Cabinet Secretary in 2020 and 2021 and played a key role in Britain's COVID response. She told the inquiry that rules were routinely broken in the daily course of government. And the King has called for action, partnership and commitment to combat environmental challenges as his state visit to Kenya continues. The King told the United Nations in Nairobi he's seen the effects of climate change firsthand before planting a tree to commemorate his visit. His Majesty then joined Queen Camilla on a visit to an elephant orphanage where the Queen fed a calf. The monarch also visited an urban forest to highlight the importance of green spaces in our cities. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's time for headliners.
Thank you, Tatiana. Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's newspapers with 3 top comedians. I'm one of them. I'm Leo Cursor. I'm here with Josh Howie and Francis Foster. How are you both doing?
Good, man. I forgot to put on my poppy.
You don't respect.
Don't cancel me. But you know what? If I stand over here where the poppy is...
No, that's you're stealing Francis's digital poppy.
There it is.
You can't share the digital poppy.
I'm just going to do the whole show here.
Mate, you look like a creepy man checking me out from behind, but I'm glad somebody is, mate.
Okay. I'll sort that out. Please, don't send any emails in.
You look like 2 creepy men from where I was sitting. Anyway, let's have a quick peek at what's in store for us on Thursday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with Musk's chilling alert over AI. The Telegraph has Britons leave Gaza as border is opened. The Guardian has pandemic hit brain health of over 50s, studies find. The Mirror has escape from hell. The Express leads with first Britons flee Gaza hell. And finally, the Daily Star has can we kill COVID by blowing a hairdryer up our hooters? And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages. We will be looking at that thing about the blowing a hairdryer up your hooter. But first, let's have a look at Thursday's Telegraph, Josh. What have they got?
People tuning out just in case. Don't worry, guys. We'll get to the star, we promise. So the first one is, Daily Telegraph. Britons leave Gaza as border is opened. There's been a couple of weeks of tense negotiations between various parties. This is the Egyptian border, which is the south of the Gaza Strip, and they finally opened it up. Part of the hold-up has been that they wanted, not just Israel, but Egypt as well. Everybody wants to make sure the people are getting out are obviously not terrorists.
Yeah.
So 2 people have got out. and that's from England. I don't think that includes Humza Yusuf.
But they've got 400 in total.
400 in total, but the 2 are out. They're still checking on Humza Yusuf's mum,
right,
to make sure. But this is good news. Obviously, we want innocent people to be safe and out, and certainly British citizens. And also they opened up, and also lots of people who needed hospital treatment. That's also a good sign.
Yeah, because it's not too safe getting treatment in a hospital in Gaza at the moment because it might get bombed, whether it's by Hamas or the IDF. But the refugees, I mean, some people are coming out, those with dual citizenship. But it's interesting that Jordan and Egypt, 2 countries bordering Israel and Egypt bordering the Gaza Strip, are very averse to taking any refugees at all.
Yeah, it is very interesting, and you could make a very coherent argument to say that is actually their moral duty to take in those refugees. But Egypt has closed the border for a significant amount of time, which has just meant that, unfortunately, these people who are on the end of bombardment because Hamas use them as human targets are physically trapped there.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time coming, but you have to ask yourself, why is it that Egypt hasn't done the decent thing and actually screened people as best they can so that they can actually leave a war zone?
But I think, I mean, the issue's a bit... like, Egypt doesn't want to facilitate the removal of people from the Gaza Strip and from the West Bank because that would be almost allowing the area to be
When Israel made
cleansed.
peace with... Because, you know, in the 1967 war, Israel won the whole of the Sinai desert. And basically part of the deal with Egypt 4 years later was they would give back the Sinai, and they said, and you can take Gaza Strip with you. And the Egyptians said, no, part of the peace deal is you have to take Gaza. We don't want them. That's how badly they didn't want that population.
So this is like a custody battle over a child that nobody wants.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of depressing. But interestingly, what I've seen people touting is that the refugees, 2 million Gazan refugees come to Europe or come to America or Canada. And I think, if it's not safe for them to live in Israeli territory, if Israel would say, well, that's too dangerous for us, why is it safe for Europe to take?
Well, it's not Israeli territory. I mean, because it's obviously they had their own territory. Israel got out in 2005.
But if they, Israel has walls and fences to stop.
Well, they didn't.
To stop
unfortunately, they needed walls. They only had the fences.
Yeah,
it's a shame that they didn't have proper.
But what I'm saying is, if it's safe for them to come to Europe, why isn't it safe for them to go into Israel? And if it's not safe for them to go into Israel, why is it suddenly safe for them to come to Europe? It's a nonsense. It's a conundrum. Anyway, moving on to the Daily Mail, Francis. What's on the front page there?
So the front page is Elon Musk. Well, Musk's chilling alert over AI, and Musk has been beating the drum about AI, warning us about the future of it. He actually, including a number of other tech entrepreneurs a few months back, signed a declaration announcing that they want a moratorium on AI, which, although I am sympathetic to its sentiments, the reality is you cannot have a moratorium on AI. Progress has never been stopped when it comes to technology. If we're not going to do it, the Chinese and the Russians are, even though if it's made in China, it'll probably be rubbish. However, he's very worried about it. He's coming to the UK. He's coming to Bletchley Park, which is good choice, which was obviously the spiritual home of Alan Turing and the code breaker. And he's come here to talk to Rishi Sunak. But the reality is can we actually stop it? Can we stop progress? Can we stop technology moving forward? The reality is we can't.
No, this is the one place in the world you can stop progress.
So,
Just get a government minister involved and it'll just grind to a halt.
That is true, actually. Look, I'll tell you what, let's just put Suella Braverman in charge of it. She'll mess it up, and then
nothing will happen.
Well, I think she'll try and make it work, but the Home Office and the rest of the woke blob, the judiciary, everyone's going to come in and stop our well-made plans from actually happening.
Can we just send AI to Rwanda?
Possibly, I don't know. I mean, AI, to me, we keep doing this headline, AI presents this threat to humanity. It's never actually killed anybody, apart from, there's that crossbow
You know what's going to be really funny is, in 3 years' time, when AI is watching this clip, they are going to be really laughing.
Yeah. I like you to say, like, AI will watch GB News, mate.
Of course they will. What, they're going to watch Sky? Come on, mate.
Skynet.
They've got brains. They're the cleverest people ever. Of course
they're going to watch
They're going to love
headliners.
GB News. Yeah, of course
they would.
But it's interesting that he's talking about this need for regulation, and Musk used this analogy of it's like every sport has. He wants to ensure fair play, but of course the thing about what's happened so far is that some of the teams have already shot way ahead.
Yeah.
So it's not even like the whistle has gone and there's already teams out there doing who knows what.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the real worrying thing is eventually, and Tucker Carlson made this point, and just I don't agree on everything Tucker says. However, he made a very good point with this, saying that the real worry is when they bring driverless cars in, because the driving industry in the US employs millions of people.
But this is the man in the white coat syndrome. So I mean, this is like when the spinning jenny was invented. When all of these, that's not a woman, by the way. That's well, I don't actually know what it is. Some kind
Sounds
of
like a lady who works at a specific type of entertainment establishment.
And she can do it very quickly. But, but when looms and all these things came through, when the washing machine was invented, everybody was like, but the laundrettes will be put out of business. The world somehow, the economy somehow finds a way of repurposing those people as travel agents or...
which are now out of business.
Travel agents get repurposed as PR consultants. There's an infinity. There's an infinity of nonsensical jobs for people to do, and we still seem to find them for people. Anyway, let's have a quick look at The Guardian, Josh. What have they got in the front cover?
Pandemic hit brain health of over 50s, study finds. So obviously this is the ongoing... well, I would say this is actually, it's simultaneous to the COVID inquiry, but it just seems like there's never-ending amounts of repercussions that weren't considered at the time, of course, and it's not necessarily fair to expect our government or world governments to have seen through every little thing, but this is something that's definitely gone through the cracks. It seems that cutting people in their over 50s and making people wear masks and stopping them see people, stopping them exercising has led to a massive decline of brain health, and who knows what ramifications that's going to have in terms of Alzheimer's and the next, which is already terrible enough, or it's going to be terrible enough as it is. So I think, if anything, it does prove one thing, though, is the need for stimulation, the need to have interaction within your life, and just shutting everyone away.
I mean, it seemed obvious at the time, but the people who said, no, you've got to go out and have, dinner. I mean, we were meeting for dinner and, people were breaking the rules and having that social...
Well, how can I resist? He went, hey, do you want to come for dinner?
We're having haggis.
We're having haggis, and he went, I'll pay. And I've never known Leo to pay for anything, so how can I turn that down?
COVID isn't a worry when you're eating mashed sheep's brains in a sheep's stomach.
Yeah.
But, we knew that lockdown was obviously going to be incredibly disastrous for people's health. And we were described as granny killers. Turns out lockdown is killing Granny, Francis.
Well, what people never talk about is a couple of months ago, Scotland had the highest death rate since 1952. And we don't talk about it. We don't talk about the fact that waiting lists are through the roof. We don't talk about the fact that because of lockdown, there were many people who had cancer symptoms who simply couldn't get treated. And by the time they could
get... You ever watched Neil Oliver's show?
And the time they could get treated, they were already stage 4, and unfortunately, it was too late. Lockdown was a tragedy for a huge swathe of the population.
Yeah, although it has been great for people like us who get to say, I told you so, which is the most wonderful feeling.
By the way,
and very attractive for women as well, mate.
By the way, they do start this article by saying 780 million people died, and they were like, by the way, 780 million people died during COVID, and now here's our...
People die. It's not like lockdown made people immortal. People die. Anyway, finally, what's in the front cover of the Daily Star, Francis?
It says, can we kill COVID by blowing a hairdryer up our hooters? And apparently, that was during an official inquiry. Boris Johnson asked this. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if he asked this as a joke. I don't know if it was an off-the-cuff quip. Either way, I never want to hear from Boris. I never want to see him again. So, thank you, Boris, for joining.
Tune in at
He's coming to GB News.
Tune in at 9 p.m.
He's coming to GB News. Do you want to change that statement?
It's nice seeing you on the channel, Francis.
Next to you soon.
Yeah, he's going to be sitting next to me. Boris, if you want to come on Trigonometry, mate, you're always welcome.
But I mean, this doesn't sound that insane as an idea for treating COVID, given that heat kills viruses. Hairdryers are hot, viruses live in your nose.
I haven't seen a hairdryer for a long time.
Or maybe it was on too high a setting. Anyway, that's it for part one. That's the front page is done. Stay with us for the next section where we've got Randy Red Arrow's bankrupt councils and The Guardian facing legal action for defaming a young black man. See you in a couple of minutes.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Carson. I'm still here with Josh Howie and Francis Foster. We've got The Guardian now complaining about a lack of diversity in the government. Have they seen the government? What's going to make them happy? A cabinet formed entirely of one-legged Papua New Guinean trans lesbians, Josh?
Let's give it a go. Lack of diversity at number 10 led to women's deaths in lockdown. COVID inquiry told. They were told by Helen McNamara. She is the person who hired a singing machine, what are they called? Karaoke machine for the party, but also she was head of the Nudge unit, which is somewhat ironic here. Boo. And her and Dominic Cummings did not get on. He referred to her in some not very nice terms. Yep. But what we have here is somewhat of a conflation where was trying to sort of argue at the time and go, we need more women because that's why we're getting these oversights. Like if we lock down marriages, certainly unhappy marriages, then more people will be harmed, particularly in this case, women, which I'm sure is true, being victims of domestic violence and even murdered. So, but I think that's I don't know if it needs a woman to be able to point that out.
Yeah, exactly. And the Labour government, who I assume the Guardian prefer because they're more diverse, even though they're actually not more diverse.
I don't know, mate. The Guardian, they don't like Keir Starmer at the moment.
Well, the Guardian are left-wing paper. Labour and all the lefties wanted a harder lockdown, which would have meant abused partners being locked inside for longer with their abusers.
Yeah, but that's progress, as you know, Leo. No, the left wanted, and this is the really tragic element of the left. I've just dropped a poppy here. Sorry, everybody.
Okay, get him out.
Get him out. Yeah, anyway. So, no, the really tragic element of COVID was the left advocating for positions that actually directly harmed working class people the most.
Yeah.
When they were saying that businesses should be shut down, who did that affect the most? It affected small businesses. When they asked for schools to be closed, that affected working class kids the most. When they wanted people locking in their homes, middle class people had a lovely time in their gardens and bottles of Chablis, whilst working class people had a really, really tough time of it. So once again, the left are rubbish.
Okay, but I think the thing that's most damning in this article is right at the end of it, where she basically says, we had one cabinet meeting where they stuck to the rules. And everybody hated it so much that the rest of the time they were like, oh, but the fact that they can remember this one perfect meeting just shows you what the government was like. They had one rule for them, literally, which they followed once in the whole 2 years. And then everybody else had to follow.
Well, they followed it one time more than I did.
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, when have we ever trusted government? When have we ever gone? You know who we really trust? Politicians, mate.
Well,
they're a bastion of morality.
unfortunately, a lot of people did. And
well, I hope
now
you've learned a lesson.
Exactly.
We can say, I told you so. We've got the Times now, and the red arrows fly without touching each other. Sadly, the pilots can't manage to do that in the ground, Francis.
That's a good link.
Yep, it was a good link. Well done, Leo. Red Arrow pilots treated women as property. Insert problematic joke. No, the Red Arrows created a hostile and humiliating environment for women. And so what happened is there was lots of allegations and then also cases where there was some, shall we say, less than desirable behaviour from men to women. A senior aircraftsman was found guilty of battery for smacking the bottom of a 19-year-old. I mean, that seems somewhat excessive. Obviously, we don't advocate that because that's not a good thing. But battery's a bit excessive. And he was ordered to pay £818.70. Where did they get the 70p from? No one knows. But a lot of women have come forward and saying it was a humiliating, degrading and offensive environment to work in. So what it seemed is that there was a culture where there was a group of blokes who felt they could pretty much do what they wanted. They behaved in ways that were less than desirable. So basically, they just behaved like politicians during the pandemic.
But Josh, I mean, this is the military. They're going out there. They're operating these high-risk flights. I mean, you never know when you're going to be called into war and you're going to have to fly in a formation, a diamond formation with some blue streamers behind you.
I don't necessarily think that that's a particular excuse for their behaviour. They were obviously arrogant. There's 140 within that whole team, but there's only like 9 of these actual pilots. It seems like it all went a little bit to the head, drinking lots, thinking that they're superstars. When you have women at a party and they basically have a system called the Shark Watch, because so they can all back each other up when certain of male members of the team are getting too drunk and start harassing people. That's just wrong. The only thing that is positive about this is that it seems like they're on it now, and this seems like there's only 2 people of those 10 left who are still in it. And obviously, because of this report, I imagine it's going to be hopefully a less fun place to work.
Well, it sounds
more fun for women, but less fun for...
just trying to get it the right way around.
Yeah, it sounds like the UK comedy industry there, Josh.
Yeah,
really? You don't know? It's never been like that.
Anyway, we've got The Guardian now with the threat of more councils going bankrupt. How can this be happening? The public sector is so well run, Francis.
Well, yeah, so 1 in 10 biggest English councils risk bankruptcy over child protection bill. Out of control increase increases in child protection have put 1 in 10 councils, that is 1 in 10, and it's been blamed on high inflation, increases in kids being taken into care, which is absolutely tragic.
And that's linked to lockdown.
And that is linked to lockdown, absolutely. Because one of the things that we don't talk enough about in lockdown is how there are a lot of people who just about get by every month. And a lockdown, unfortunately, sent a lot of these people losing their businesses, losing their jobs, set them over the edge.
And
as a result,
complete disintegration of the social structures and communities that hold them together.
Absolutely. And as a result, they can't look after the kids anymore. The kids end up in the care system, which is obviously awful. And now it's got to the point that there's so many kids, there's high inflation. They can't, the councils can no longer even afford to run these homes. So what you've got is this horrible spiral. And the victims of it are vulnerable children.
Yeah, and Josh, I mean, some of the costs in here are insane. It looks like the government or local governments aren't good at allocating funding. Some firms are charging more than £250,000 a week for a highly specialised children's residential
Because they've
placement.
had to close down a lot of these homes, because the government has cut everything to the wick.
Well, it should be cheaper.
Over the last 13 years, it was cheaper. Then they had to close these things down. Then demand goes up. They have to go to private health providers, and those private providers charge a huge whack. So this is the cycle going around and around. Someone's going to work out the money and go, wait a minute, maybe we should open up some our own homes and whatnot, and then it goes around, and that'll be cheaper and so on. So anyway, it's terrible, and but this is what happens after 13 years of a Tory government.
Or 2 years of lockdown, which
under a Tory government.
Which, well, yeah, but I mean the left are fighting for more of a lockdown. Anyway, we've got the Times now with the harrowing story of a young black man fighting back after his life was ruined by a privileged organisation with its roots in slavery called The Guardian. Josh.
Very, very good. Noel Clarke can sue The Guardian over sexual assault articles, judge rules. Noel Clarke, he's an actor, he's a director, he's a proper, hustler. I've met him a few times. He was very nice to me. And he did Kidulthood, Adulthood and whatnot. Anyway, The Guardian released 8 articles a few years ago, which essentially made him out to be this sexual predator. And then nothing ever happened of it. He never got taken to court.
Yeah.
The CBS, there's no charges ever brought against him.
But it destroyed his career.
Yeah, totally destroyed. He had a TV series that was pulled immediately. I think it was on Sky.
He's going to end up doing headliners next week.
This is what. Actually, I've still got his number in my phone. But this is the funniest part for me is that The Guardian, in their defence, said that no reasonable reader would assume that an allegation is true merely because it had been made. It's like they've written 8 articles about him being this sexual predator, and then suddenly, well, no one would actually believe us. We're The Guardian.
Yeah, I believed them. I read there's so much noise about him in The Guardian. I assumed it was true. When you're if you're not a legal expert, you're not picking through looking for the thing. Oh, this is just an allegation. Oh, this is just.
You took your Kidulthood DVD to the charity shop. You were so angry.
I burned it.
So upset.
Yeah. I burned it in a pile.
We work in show business. I mean, this is show business. I mean,
we're wearing poppies, mate.
Yeah, exactly. We work in show business. So I was just delighted someone more successful than me was seeing their career destroyed, mate.
But I mean, the Guardian's reporting of this, I don't know if you saw it. In the Times, they say, the court has decided that Noel Clarke can sue The Guardian, and he was, the 8 articles defamed him. And The Guardian is reported as a serious setback to Noel Clarke. It's completely subverting. It's almost as if they're still lying.
Yeah, well, they must be worried because there's talk that the amount of damages that he can gain from The Guardian are 10 million quid.
Wow.
That won't eat into their trust fund at all.
Their slave money trust fund.
Their slave money trust. But also, we're going to talk a little bit about Russell Brand.
Yeah,
because, well, I mean, that was a big hoo-ha.
Yeah.
The police are looking into it. Maybe they still are. Maybe there will be some charges that are laid and whatnot. but it's gone very quiet after all of these huge revelations and whatnot. Or is it going to be that we're going to be reading an article about Russell Brand?
And one of the revelations about Charlotte Wace, the journalist who put the Russell Brand dossier together, so she previously defamed a beauty therapist, I think Danielle, I can't remember her last name, and was sued. So the Daily Mail, I think she wrote for the Daily Mail, and the newspaper she wrote for was sued, and they had to pay, a staggering sum. So she doesn't have the best track record when it comes to making up things about people.
Well, this is also true, but all I'm going to say is all of these people that we've talked about who have got very dodgy sexual pasts are all in Josh Howie's phone book.
That's true. I've got Russell's number.
Yeah, you've got Russell's number and Noel's number.
But you know who else's number I got?
Who? Hey, listen.
Wait a minute, both of them!
This is a face you can trust, mate.
It's the Epstein files. That's it for part 2. Coming up, we've got Tory party privilege tests, a drug cop failing his own drug test, and what is a woman? We're going to find out. See you in a couple of minutes.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the dinosaur hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Telegraph now, and the Conservative Party have been forcing interns to undergo privilege tests. I miss the days when they'd all gather round a biscuit with their trousers down instead, Francis.
Yeah, so do I. But anyway, this is what the Conservative Party are doing now. They're doing privilege walks. And if you don't know what a privilege walk is, it's where you get all your employees and you quiz them on their race, gender, sexuality and disability. So basically, I'll ask you a question like, are you male? Take a step forward. Are you white? Take another step forward. And the people who end up at the very, very front are the most privileged. Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing, that is meant to increase cohesiveness and morale amongst their staff.
How on earth is this going to increase cohesiveness and morale? Like dividing everybody, making everybody focus on their immutable characteristics?
Because the Tory party, they all went to private school and they all end up at the end together and they go, we've had a great
We're
life.
number one. Oh, so they're celebrating privilege, which is a great thing to do. We should be aspiring to be privileged.
They all end up like 3 miles down the road. First of all, it wasn't done this year. It was done over the last couple of years. I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but I do think it's a good thing it's not happening this year.
Right.
Also, they do the same training for the same people, providers do the same training for the Labour Party.
But yeah, I understand it for the Labour Party. They're in all this nonsense.
But I do want to say that as someone who grew up with immense privilege, that...
What happened to it?
Yeah, well, exactly. First of all, if you want to get rid of privilege, just send a couple of years on the open mic circuit. That'll destroy you.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt, and I thought I was somewhat streetwise or whatever. It's like, no. You are, like, you can't appreciate the bubble that you're in a public school, and you get out there and you just think, yeah, well, people should just work hard, and you can't, all these things that you just take, but the point is, you don't appreciate the realities of the world by any means. So people
I went to state school and I think that people should work hard.
I agree with you. People should work hard. But the point is, you can come out into the world, go to university with the same people, and blink it into the workplace, go and work for the Tory party, and the whole time you actually have no clue about reality.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, we've got the Mail now, and a policeman has been hoisted by his own petard. But by the sounds of it, that's not the only thing that got him high, Josh.
Hi. Yeah, senior Met police officer who drew up Force's anti-drug strategy is sacked for refusing to take a cannabis test. We've seen this, I think we've probably done this story 3 times. This is the story where he actually has lost his job, finally, which the first thing that indicates is how long it takes for police men and women to get fired or to actually lose their... They get on suspension, and that's... You've got hundreds of these police officers on suspension. It seems like they're working through it. There's obviously a great irony here that the person who drew up all this anti-drug legislation was himself... Although it doesn't prove that he did drugs, but the fact he wouldn't do... but I thought that would make him good at the job. He also oversaw a lot of panels, like 74 police misconduct hearings involving 90 officers over 2 years, where a lot of those officers lost their jobs. So if he really was on drugs that time, that's kind of messed up.
I think you'd have to take drugs to fire that many people. I mean, this could be a case of a poacher turned gamekeeper. I mean, it sounds like he might have been using drugs, and that's possibly, I'm just speculating, that's why he refused to do the drugs test and lost his job.
It might well be. You know, but to me, he sounds like a bit of a legend, mate.
You think so? But no, I don't. Look, he's been working there since 1976 or something.
He's 1976.
So no. The point is, he's in his 50s, 60s, and then it talks about his flatmate. Who's got a flatmate?
Well, he obviously does
spending it on drugs. That's his drug money. Is that flatmate?
Yeah.
He did allegedly.
You know, there's that great joke by the comedian Jeff Innocent.
Just stole my pen.
Yeah, where his daughter says to him, "Daddy, have you ever taken cocaine?" And he goes, "My darling, why do you think we've always lived in rented accommodation?"
Yeah. And there's the joke by Ian Cognito that said, "I don't like cocaine. I just like the smell of it."
Yeah,
that's very good.
The Express now, and scientists have developed a new and innovative way to stop us enjoying ourselves, Francis.
Well, indeed, scientists, because you know what, life isn't difficult enough at the moment. There's not enough division, there's not enough misery. So you know what? Let's put warnings on meat. That's what we're going to do. That's what scientists say. They want to put cigarette-style warnings, Joshy, on meat.
Like chicken vindaloo.
Yeah, exactly.
Pictures of diarrhea.
Yeah, eating meat contributes to climate change.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that's what they want to put. You know, they'll say, oh, it increases, you know, certain types of diseases.
So we've got a picture here. This is, I guess, an artist's mock-up of what it could look like. So instead of having, you know, obviously on cigarette packets, they've got, you know, disgusting illnesses, charred lungs, things like that. This isn't something, unless this is the underside of somebody's foot, this is a charred forest. This shows how eating meat can cause Mad Max-style wastelands.
But this is a problem I have with this. Well, there's many problems. We get British beef. I buy British beef. That doesn't look like Britain to me.
That was Britain. That looked like Birmingham Centre.
It did. It actually did. I've done gigs in Birmingham.
There are no trees or stumps.
Oh, yeah. And no hope. So if you're in Birmingham, unlucky, and you need to flee because it's a war zone.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about this is it's shown that with alcohol and smoking stuff, these warnings do have an impact. They're about 10% or so. But what's interesting is that climate change had the biggest impact, as opposed to photos of health issues. I would have thought if you see a picture of your colon rotting or whatever it is, not speaking, I mean...
just set a mirror up. Just set a mirror up at home, Josh. I'll show you.
Then I would have thought that would be more likely to make you not buy the meat.
That makes, I'll be honest with you, that makes complete sense to me, particularly amongst the young who have been fed this diet that we are going to... The world is going to end. We're all going to burst into flames in a couple of years. So anything that can defer that or stop that from happening, of course they're going to do it.
And I think being fed those ideas is far more dangerous than being fed a bit of meat, which is actually tasty.
You guys maybe want to go to McDonald's.
And good for you. Anyway, The Independent now and some feminists have been told what a woman is by men. The patriarchy's back, baby. I mean, Josh.
Feminist campaign group loses legal battle over definition of word woman. This is for Women Scotland. They've lost a legal battle. And the gist of it is we actually covered a similar story where Wales were trying to push through a shortlist for women nominees for the synod or whatever it's called. Synod? I don't know. Anyway, point is, this is a similar thing here where they're conflating two different laws, and women now legally in Scotland still means someone with a GRC certificate. Now, that's not all bad news.
It's a gender recognition
which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because at least there's no self-ID laws, because then it would have been like anybody could just get a GRC. But to get
instead, you got to stand in a queue, send off a stamped addressed envelope, and a doctor will say that, you know what, Leo, you're a woman.
The point is, it's not just wearing a wig or going on someone's say-so. So it's not great, but at the same time, at least we're not where we could have been at the moment.
So it's slightly better than awful, Francis.
Yeah, basically.
It is slightly better than awful. But look, Scottish women are beautiful, Leo, like Isla Bryson. That's my favourite Scottish woman. What a delicious slab of woman.
She wrote some murder mystery novels, I believe.
Yeah.
No, Isla Bryson was the
winner of Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah, no, she is a two-time rapist who raped people with her penis.
Yeah, and was sent to a woman's prison.
Yeah, of course, because she's a woman. She's a woman with a beautiful feminine face tattoo.
Well, at least now that she can, she is, technically, she can go on a public board or something.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Talk about what it's like to be a bird.
OK, well, The Guardian now, and a leading Tory says the LGBTQIA++, 2SA, XYZ group Stonewall
missed out a few.
I apologise deeply to the asexuals and monosexuals out there.
What's
has
a
been taken
monosexual?
over. Monosexual is somebody who has sex with themselves, Francis. So,
well, that's me.
Yep, that's a lot of us. Has been taken over by Stonewall has been taken over by leftist ideas. Presumably, she'll also tell us where bears like to defecate, Francis.
Yes, indeed. So Kemi Badenoch claims Stonewall has been taken over by leftist ideas, as you says. And look, this is what we know. You know, Stonewall were an organisation that did a lot of great work for gay rights in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s,
even the 90s,
and even in the 90s, but particularly
then
during
it tapered off a bit.
Yeah, and particularly during the AIDS pandemic, and now they've ended up going absolutely mental. There is a very famous line, which is every cause starts out as a movement, turns into a business, and ends up as a racket. And that is very much what has happened to Stonewall, because they've got no more fights left in the UK, because we are one of the most tolerant countries in the world. So instead of going to places, I don't know, like Iran and fighting for gay people there, they'll think, no, let's just talk about how women don't exist.
Well, to be honest, I mean, that sounds a bit safer than going to Iran and fighting for gay rights there. But I mean, Josh, the Stonewall started out as a lesbian, gay and bisexual movement. That's to do with sexuality. Yeah. It's obvious, it's measurable, it's clear. Now they've sort of metastasized into this movement that focuses on transgender issues and queer issues, which is far more nebulous and ideological.
There's a woman who thinks she's queer because she's tall. Yeah. And like it's basically, yeah, one is to do with sexuality. Yeah. And everything, and then there's someone I saw on a clip like everything else is just people playing pretend. It's not that trans people don't exist as such, but that's got nothing to do with it. And certainly they, them. These things are choice. They might feel like it's not a choice, but it's an ideology. It's not the same. What's interesting is Stonewall here said in comment, "We have never professed to offer legal advice, and it's important to represent our work accurately." And I'm sorry, I'm just going to disagree with that. There's lots of documents of them doing exactly that, offering their legal advice and indeed presenting the law as something different to what it actually was.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
OK, well, that's part 3 done. Coming up, we've got Camilla's cash flow crisis, Goldie Hawn touched by an alien, and what your phone is doing to your sperm count. See you in a couple of minutes.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the dinosaur hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this?
Are you rethinking this policy?
Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final section of Headliners. We've got the Mail now with the worrying news that your phone is affecting your sperm count, and not just because you're watching too much hentai on it, Josh.
Could your phone be making you infertile? Alarming study on plunging sperm count sparks warning for men to be conscious of using their mobile phone too much. It turns out the average has dropped. So the average was 99 million sperm per millimetre, has gone down to 47 million.
So it's halved.
I've been measured, it's half.
More than half.
I was measured recently. I'm at 2,000 million sperm per millimetre that Lewis Schaefer bought in a machine.
And you've got 5 kids, so I mean, this must not worry you.
It's all good. But yeah, it doesn't really make sense, because the idea is, there's also talking about it's 21% of lower sperm because of the sperm concentration. I wonder if it's because you were on Twitter and that sends them all a bit doolally. It's a little bit strange, because you would think that taking it out of your pocket. If it was radiation that did it, the more you're on your phone or the more you got it here...
It's away from your...
Is away from the gonads.
Yeah.
You allowed to say gonads off com?
I think so.
Yeah, you are. It's a scientific term.
OK, fine. Gonads!
Yeah.
But actually, it seems like it's more also affected about like 2G, 3G. So all those people who are like, oh, don't put up 5G, it's got a chip. No, actually, 5G is saving us, saving our lives.
Yeah. Well, there you go. But you would say that because you're controlled opposition by saying 5G is saving life. The one thing that it didn't really talk about, which is very interesting, is microplastics. There's a lot of people who believe that microplastics is actually one of the things that is causing infertility, because microplastics causes the production of the female hormone.
That's because it's an article about phones.
And microplastics are the tiny little fragments of plastic that we eat all the time. And apparently we eat enough microplastic each week to make a credit card. I mean, it won't work. You need to
well,
get one
I
from a
sometimes
credit card
actually
company.
eat a credit card.
Yeah.
Just if I missed out.
Maybe that's where the stat came from.
Yeah.
But I mean, so you're saying there's chemicals in the plastic that mimic estrogen.
Yeah, that mimic estrogen, and is one of the things that people think is not only affecting sperm counts but also lowering testosterone as well.
And isn't it linked to obesity as well? Because people are obviously a lot fatter than they used to be. Certainly around my parts they are, and that affects the amount of testosterone you produce.
And it affects the amount of testosterone. The more fat that you have in your body, the more estrogen that you produce. Obviously, this is terrible if you're a man, and it means that you're more likely to suffer from depression and vote Labour.
So you need to eat lean and lift lots of weights.
Eat meat, eat lift weights.
We've got the Mail again, and it seems like Rishi Sunak's father-in-law would make a more conservative leader than Rishi Sunak, Francis.
Which is not very difficult. Yeah, Rishi's billionaire father-in-law, he sparked outrage in India after saying that young people should work 70-hour weeks to help the country. He said that work productivity in India is one of the lowest in the world. He said unless we improve work productivity, we're not going to be able to compete. But the reality is that the state of the world is so bad and everybody is so lazy, particularly in the West, that Indians only have to do the bare minimum and they'll be absolutely fine. Well, what I found quite interesting about this article is, so he was lamenting productivity, but I think India's booming at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's got it's beating China in the population crisis. So its population is still growing, whereas China's is
no, its
hitting
economy
a cliff.
has definitely been affected by COVID and whatnot. I think that's part of what they're talking about.
But I mean, everybody's has. I mean, in
no, sure. But I'm just saying that they're trying to boost the economy.
Yeah.
And he's saying that if you work more, that's what's going to make up that difference. But yeah, I mean, 70 hours. That would mean I'd need to work another 63 hours a week.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not that much. So it's 7 hours a day for 10 days a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Do the maths.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Entrepreneur and filmmaker Ronnie Screwvala. I mean, I don't know what films Ronnie makes, but I can have a guess. But he's saying that boosting productivity isn't just about working on longer hours. It's getting better at what you do, upskilling, having a positive work environment, and fair pay for the work done. You hear that, GB News?
Okay, wait, sorry, I just want to... Can I just quickly say something about... It's just his daughter, who is the wife of our Prime Minister, she said her secret success is hard work, humility and selflessness, and having a dad who's a billionaire.
We've got the Mirror now, and Robert De Niro's most famous line is, "You talking to me, you talking to me." Not because he's hard of hearing now, he's still a raging bull at the age of 80, Josh.
Sure is. Furious, Robert De Niro shouts at his former assistant in court during explosive trial. He's 80 years old. His assistant, who was getting 300 grand a year, which is like, mate, I'll shout at me for 300 grand a year. I'll totally happy. I mean, I get 10 grand a year for Simon to shout at me. But yeah, supposedly he'd, asked her to scratch his back twice. And just terrible. She's trying to get $12 million in damages. It's insane. Yeah, and he lost his temper, and that's fair enough.
Although, I mean, she's accusing him in court of being an abusive, like losing his temper, and he's lost his temper in court in front of the judge, which isn't the best look.
No, it's not the best look. But also, as well, you would lose your temper if you were 80 years old and someone was suing you for being basically a cantankerous old so-and-so. $12 million.
Yeah.
want that job. I want him to shout at me to have a breakdown, and me to get 12 million bucks out of it.
Well, in fairness, he's counter-suing her. This is a counter-suit against him. He was previously suing her to reclaim 3 years' worth of money.
And they said that her defence is saying that he's suing her for the publicity. This is the guy. Yeah, he just wants to get a few more like Facebook followers and whatnot.
Yeah, and this is the publicity he's getting.
You can't handle the truth.
We've had
no, that's completely
Telegraph now with the news that Goldie Hawn was touched by an alien. They really need to finish building that border wall, Francis.
Yeah, exactly. An alien touched my face, says Goldie Hawn. She claimed that she once had an alien experience in which triangular-headed beings touched her face. She must have been back to Alabama. Anyway, so that was it. She said it felt like the finger of God. It was. I mean,
where did it touch her face?
Yeah, exactly. Insert your own jokes. She was working as a dancer at the Melodyland Christian Centre, where it probably makes sense that she got touched somewhere. And but what she said, here's a really interesting bit. She previously revealed she was sent to a psychologist after using cannabis in the 60s. Around the same time, she said she encountered aliens.
What? Did I feel like touching?
Well, she was stargazing.
Like heaven, mate.
She was stargazing, and she'd been thinking about aliens, and it sounds like she might have just drifted off to sleep and had a little dream about aliens because she'd been thinking about them.
Oh, she was smoking.
No, why are you so cynical?
Yes.
Well, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Thursday's front pages. The Daily Mail has Musk's chilling alert over AI. The Telegraph leads with Britons leave Gaza as border is opened. The Guardian has pandemic hit brain health of over 50s, studies show. The Mirror has escape from hell. The Express has first Britons flee Gaza hell. And finally, the Daily Star has can we kill COVID by blowing a hairdryer up our hooters? We can't, by the way, just in case you're wondering. And those were your front pages, and that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests Josh Howie and Francis Foster. Nick Dixon will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with some other people. We're not sure who they are. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, do stay tuned for breakfast. I've been Leo Kearse. Thanks for watching Headliners. It's on every night at 11 p.m, repeated at 5 a.m. Have a great sleep. Bye-bye.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the dinosaur hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christys, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Are the police applying the law evenly to those who protest with pro-Palestinian flags and those who object to it? I don't think they do. And I've got for you tonight what I think is a very disturbing report. It's Rishi Sunak's AI Safety Summit. Yes, those 2 letters are everywhere. But do you at home know what AI actually is, what it means and what it could do? I bet there's a lot that don't. Tonight, we will try to explain all of that. And I do an interview with Senator Jacinta Price. She's the Australian that led the recent successful No campaign in their referendum. And I tell you what, she's going to be a big force in Australian politics in the years to come. But before all of that, let's get the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nigel, thank you very much and good evening. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. The Foreign Office has confirmed the first British nationals have left Gaza via the Rafah border crossing from Gaza into Egypt. The Foreign Secretary James Cleverly called the crossing a hugely important first step. Well, earlier, buses carrying at least 320 foreign passport holders set off from Gaza, the first in an initial list of 500 people allowed out of the enclave. It comes as more than 80 injured people were taken across the Rafah crossing in ambulances under a deal mediated by Qatar. The Israeli military says 15 of its soldiers have been killed during heavy fighting in its ground offensive into Gaza. That as another airstrike hit the Jabalia refugee camp in the north. Rescue efforts were underway this afternoon as paramedics dug through the rubble in a desperate search for survivors. The IDF says an airstrike yesterday killed a senior Hamas commander who was a ringleader of the attack on the 7th of October. Police are searching for 2 men in the West Midlands after several incidents of mice being thrown into McDonald's restaurants.